Yes,
that
sir.
is part of the design now?
That is not part of the design at
not.
present.
Okay, is it going to be, or is it just you're proposing it?
We're proposing it. We intend, we're hoping there's community support and that this is an improved aesthetic that's palatable, favorable, something that everybody can actually be behind. And we want to initiate that.
And when were these renderings available? They're just now, or?
They're just available now.
Okay, so nothing was presented prior to this?
No.
Would save all these issues? Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, they were just developed. They're hot off the press.
They were just developed now as opposed to 6 years ago.
That's correct.
Which would have saved all these issues. Just checking on it, just making sure we're on the same side.
All right, so I'll take this gentleman here, and then we'll go back, and then I'll come to this. Okay. Oh, sorry, you was next. I apologize.
I would make a few points. I'm also an architect. I own the Historic South Plaza. I'm sorry.
Microphone. Hold on. And if you could be patient, because what I'll ask Rick to do, since he has the microphone, is to also to repeat the question that was asked. So you may not hear the question.
Is this working off?
Now.
All right, I turned the switch.
There you go.
Don't move.
My name is Jonathan Hurst. I live on Vermont Street. I'm on the board of Historic Mount Pleasant, but not necessarily speaking for the board. First of all, there's several things here. The ANC does not have, when the ANC approves a design, it's not the same thing as having the historic legal review done by the Department of Interior and the Historic Preservation Office. Just because you're cruising along in the design, as far as I can tell, you made no steps to slow the design in any way, does not excuse you to say that we're going to slow the project down. If the project had been properly planned, you would not have to be slowing it down. You'd be doing the right thing in the first place. There are a lot of variables involved here in terms of design. You seem to have taken Maryland Department of Transportation's template, overlaid it on an intersection, and left it at that. One thing you left off on your slide of the goals of the project at the beginning were in the transportation study that was done, the transportation that was done several years ago, which had to do with preserving the historic character of Mount Pleasant. That was not evidently transmitted to the designers. It's not in your design. It does not respect the neighborhood in any sense. The other point I'd like to make is that if you had hired a designer sensitive to historic neighborhoods, and also someone with a knowledge of structural engineering, they would know how to span the area along this great tree that we all want to save in a way that's not intrusive to the tree. It could be a structural slab supporting the road. It could still be a structural slab supporting the road. So there's no reason why the road cannot be located except for money and time. And that's not the problem with neighbors, that's the problem with people.
So to respond, there are a couple of points raised. Historic approval process. The project occurs fully within DDOT's right of way. All environmental and historic permitting processes and laws were followed as part of this project. The community reaction, though, is that the aesthetic isn't appropriate for the building, and we agree. That's why we're here today with the renderings, and we're hoping to mitigate that. The second question. So we had coordinated with our urban foresters, and the root system for a tree of this size is quite large and extensive. And they advised us that if we were to be placing the wall on the west side, and what we can't do is cut some roots, place some of a wall with cantilevers, let the tree start to take on a slow death. It's not apparent.
But you're familiar with the idea of a bridge. It's possible to build a section of the road as a bridge so that there's no impact at all on the roots. And you could have designed it that way if you had to raise the road that much, because at this point you have to raise the road.
We actually have, so because of the slope issue, we have had to go in and look at how close we can get to the tree. We've been advised authorized to stay 15 to 20 feet away from the tree. The cantilever, I mean, the extensive, to get a structural system in there, to
Have you
save the
actually, have
tree.
you had someone
Hold
look
on
at
for
it?
1 second, because I want to make sure that all residents have an opportunity to ask their questions. So we'll let the resident ask, and then DDOT will respond, but everyone needs to have an opportunity. So, but if you could just address whether there was 106 review, because I believe that was the other part of the question.
The-
that will go here.
The environmental and historic permitting process is all in play. We're complying with our section 106.
Can we see the documentation? Where
You
is
let us
this?
know what the
Okay,
notification was.
so then a follow-up question, and we'll ask DDOT to supply that so we can get this out to the community, is to provide whatever documentation there is in support of the 106. That is the question that is, so sir, if you can go ahead and ask your question. And yes, ma'am, I see you right there.
Unfortunately, I have quite a number of questions. Maybe it'll work better down there. I have a number of questions, actually 11 questions. And I know I'm not going to ask them all, but what I'm suggesting is I'm going to submit this as part of the record to this, and I expect that I will receive timely answers for it. I want to set the stage for what I'm going to talk about. First off, I believe that you have a Department of Transportation Design Manual that was published in 2009. Did you use that manual? And was it used on this project? Okay. Everything I have here are questions that are drawn directly from that manual for things that you were supposed to do. But even before I do that, I want to mention something else. Well, one of my questions is in here, I think it's more important, so I'll make it clear this idea. You said you submitted this to the ANSI committee.
That's correct.
And the ANSI committee did what?
We had many, well,
No, I'm asking, they had 2 resolutions that they
there are
passed.
5 resolutions.
Yes, but we see there are 5 resolutions to support, but you modified your plan at 65%
Yes, sir.
So everything else below that became invalidated. How many did you have after that?
1.
1. Okay, and
Pardon, of support, and it was after we incorporated the change with the median wall and presented it to the ANC.
yes, but here's the next question. On that plan, did you read the resolution before approved?
On the last one,
Yes.
it approved final design.
No.
So hold on for 1 second, because I want to make sure that the questions that we ask are respectful and appropriate and like not attacking. So I think it's a great idea to have to submit the questions and then to have DDOT answer so that the entire community can see.
Let him finish his
Well,
question.
Don't freeze discussion,
Please
please.
ask your question, but at the same time, this is not like a cross-examination. We're saying everybody should have an opportunity to ask.
Critical questions are appropriate.
So go ahead.
Ask the question.
Your last question.
Well, for my last question, I haven't had answers.
Okay.
The ANSI approvals that were done were for sign markings and for pavement markings and signage. Now, in your DOT engineering manual of 2009, inside those 2 sections, do they include the concept of barriers inside that approval? No. I'll answer for you.
So, in the summer of 2011, this concept of changing and including median, retaining wall with the median barrier was presented. DDOT responded with a change in design. It was incorporated into our plans in December. In August. We came and presented in December a PowerPoint presentation to the ANC that had clear images of the retaining wall and was labeled median barrier Jersey shape.
I downloaded the ANSI minutes from that meeting. There is no resolution approving that.
If I can finish, after that meeting, subsequently, a month later, we received, so we have presented final plans, both hard copy and a presentation to the ANC a month later, and we're about to go into construction. So as DDOT proceeded, this is the last step. The ANC provided a resolution. It did not clearly take issue with anything in the project. And as far as we're concerned, if it's not noting something like that, it's a green light.
Oh, I see. So, well, we understand where you're coming from then. Last point I would make is you realize that inside your own document here, that it indicates in one of your sections that to have the approval of an ANC committee is not a substitute for the community approval. that's in one of your documents. It says that the ANC committee and the community will be notified and have an opportunity.
So we were relying on your ANC to
So that is
define
your
the
own
two
regulation.
How would you suggest, without working with the ANC?
Historic Mount Pleasant.
Historic Mount Pleasant.
Any
Fire,
meeting,
fire,
okay, hold on for 1
fire,
second. Because we have to have one person speaking at one time. We have
Those are
translation is being used.
Those are recommendations in your document, fires, public meetings, they're all in your document. You follow them. And I would also point, you know, the Minnesota Street document, environmental impact was done. Should I show you a copy of that in 2007? Do you have a document of a comparable nature that you can show us that you did for our area? This is the environmental assessment.
Environmental assessment was not required for this project.
Oh, that's, again, according to your opinion, I think because the historic district was going to be required. But those are things that have to be resolved later on.
All right, thank you. So the question right here.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for your presentation. My name is Ted Jones. I don't live in this immediate area, but this is away on Irving Street. And one of the big concerns I've heard people where I live discuss is the consequences for increased traffic on Irving, and not just of trucks. You know, I was interested to hear what you had to say about that. I forgive me for being a little skeptical that trucks aren't going to make that turn, because they already do. And I think that once they're enabled to take a wider turning radius, there'll be more of them. And I know some people say, well, where do they come from? I don't know, but they're making the turn. I've seen them. But it's not just trucks, it's also traffic. And one of the changes I noticed that is in this plan from the status quo is what looks like a dedicated right turn lane off of Adams Mill onto Irving. You know, right now you don't have what I would consider a turn lane. You get right up to the front and you can either turn at this angle or at that angle, but you've really smoothed it out and you've doubled the turning radius, even though that's on the inside of, well, it would be the right-hand turning lane.
There is a right turn lane.
So I'm a little concerned about, you know, what is the impact of leveling the grade, widening the turn, and facilitating greater traffic up Irving Street? Because if you've got cars making that turn faster and with greater frequency, I think you've undermined some of the public safety benefit that's supposed to be objective.
So when I hear faster, I'm thinking safer. And the national code is required. I think a lot of people.
Just a second, because we have simultaneous translation that is being used, so I cannot have everybody talking at once because our translator is being overworked over there. So please, just one at a time.
So we were able to achieve a safer turning movement for passenger vehicles, not for trucks, not for anything more. But it's DDOT's duty to do the best it can to make an intersection safer for pedestrians and vehicles. We also constrained northbound Adams Mill with the addition of the bike lane. It's now one lane going northbound.
Could you address the right-hand turn lane that I pointed out?
Right now, the way it is, you can peel off to go kind of northbound, and there was a dedicated right. I'm sorry. So right here.
Yeah, but if there's one car at the light, then no one can make that picture. So it's,
There's 2 lanes there currently.
So you see the
there's
constraints
always
right
two
there?
lanes.
Just 1 second.
So we have a bottleneck right here too that only allows one lane. It's not like 2 full lanes that you get here, and you know, completely up the hill and double stacked from Kenyon all the way down to Harvard. It's a single lane because we added a bike lane here, and so we bottlenecked. We have widened this out. This shouldn't contribute to any noticeable increase in traffic. This isn't something that's going to make commuting time 5 minutes shorter or even any noticeable difference. But it will be safer for those that are standing here waiting for the crosswalk, for the cross signal.
And then those make traffic
Just 1 second.
heavier?
Just 1 second. I'm going to the lady right here because she's going to wait.
Vehicle breakdown can emergency vehicles get to car or
question is, if an emergency vehicle breaks down, then how would an emergency, if a car breaks down in one of the lanes, then how would an emergency vehicle get to either the car or to the resident or what have you?
Working with emergency services, I don't see how this would prohibit them from getting to where they need to go.
Here's one lane with a wall. You can't pull over.
I think that what residents are talking about is that this right here is a single lane. So if for whatever reason a car breaks down here and there's an emergency vehicle that needs to come from this direction, then how does that happen? Or southbound, sorry,
So,
the other way.
I mean, if this was bottlenecked because of a breakdown, then free flow traffic has vacated and there's access. This is the way the Battalion 5 accesses actually Kenyon and Irving. They use this route. They would be coming from right here. So that they have a direct, free and clear access to the incident.
There's a breakdown in the direction of the emergency.
Right, so, okay, so
For the interpreter, if there is a breakdown in the direction that the emergency vehicle is trying to go.
sure, so if there's a breakdown, let's say mid-length here, beyond the breakdown is clear. So, you know, there's no vertical difference right here. This is a U-turn and back up or a direct front pull-in to access as soon as
So
possible.
I think that what residents are looking for is that it seems that if a car broke down on the side of the barrier, then it seems that an emergency vehicle would not be able to pass.
Or anybody else.
Or anyone else, that's right.
And as far as I know, so the fire department accesses this neighborhood coming northbound. If it was an incident here, and maybe I've misunderstood, I see how they can access from either end. And this isn't a tunnel. You know, there's also access from this side. The difference is 3 feet.
Okay, just one moment. So this woman had her hand up here for a while.
Hi, I just have a question about the area between Irving Street and Adams Mill Road. I noticed a lot of your reforestation efforts have been along Adams Mill Road and between the Rock Creek Park, but that whole area, there's been a lot of trees chopped down, it's been like kind of cleaned out. Are there any plans to kind of beautify that area as well?
Can you repeat the question, Rich?
I believe, I want to make sure I understand it correctly.
Here, I'll show you. I'll show you. I'll show you.
Okay, sure. Okay, so in the bullnose, this is slated to become asphalt pavement.
Right, no, but
Okay.
to the right of that, to the
Right.
right,
So
that
this
whole
is
area there. Yeah, so
There.
the pedestrians and people walking along the street and waiting at the bus stop, what
Yes.
are they going to be looking
Where do
at?
But when they're standing here, what are they going to be looking at?
No, no, walking.
The bus stop.
On the other bus stop.
So this is the bus
Yes.
stop.
Yeah, exactly.
So that when people stand here, what do they see here?
Yeah,
The residents see traffic.
right, basically.
You raise the road 3
Well,
feet.
basically, I was just thinking that some of the, some of the impacts of the visuals might be, diminished if there is more canopy in between Irving Street and Adams Mill Road. So if there was some more bushier plants or trees or something that,
I'll be honest, I'm not sure how much this canopy has been thinned from the removal of these 3. And actually, I believe that one of them has had the branches cut, but the trunk hasn't been removed. I believe it's maybe this one, and this one is still there. One of the 2 is almost removed. I don't know how bad the impact of the canopy was there, but that's a valid question, and it's certainly within our means to provide some new native species there to fill it.
okay.
Okay.
So I think that is the question, and I think that was also a point that David also raised in his opening statement, was for more tree coverage here. But you have a question, I believe.
Yes, I would like to know, who owns the piece of property of the bullnose? Is that also federal property? Is that one of the federal reservations?
None of this is federal property.
This is not federal property?
This is the right-of-way line right here.
And, okay.
And
then-
so I guess east of this line is the district.
So that's DC property too on the outside, the outside of the bullnose?
Yes, all of this.
Okay. And then my question to you is a follow-up on the 106 process?
Yes.
Because you received $3 million in federal highway funds.
That's correct.
And I used to work in Section 106 process on the federal side, from giving grants required that the Federal Highway Authority submit to the DC Preservation Office as the State Historic Preservation Office, and for your office, the recipient of the federal grant, to do consultation. So I'm not quite sure. Could you clarify exactly how it is that you think you did all the consultation that you needed to do?
I consulted with our environmental system team before this meeting to be prepared for this question.
Did you speak to your general counsel about that?
No, I spoke with our environmental team.
And
the historic team was responsible for meeting with DC SHPO, for looking at the need for 106 and certifying that the project is compliant.
Well, I would like more information about that. I think the rest of the neighborhood too. You consulted with the ANC. The ANC Commission, if you do not know, actually in the past has had a very hostile relationship with historic Mount Pleasant. And if you'd asked anyone in the neighborhood, they could have told you that. So your consultation with the DC Historic Preservation Office and the neighborhood as part of a federal undertaking, which this is, because it's the majority of the funds are federal, doesn't seem to have been complete at all. In addition, because of the work along the National Park Service site, the Commission of Fine Arts should have been consulted as a DC originated project receiving a huge amount of federal funds. That's the SHPO. But the Commission of Fine Arts should have also been consulted about this project because they're impacting Rock Creek, which they have a purview over review projects of anything that happens along Rock Creek, even within the right of way. They moved a house up in North Portal when somebody built there who was not, and that was approved by DC, but not approved by the Commission of Fine Arts. That house is gone because they did not do the full review.
So the next question. The next question comes from Sean, and then the gentleman here, and I see you, ma'am, and sir. So Sean.
Yeah, I think that kind of, talking about the history of not just this city, it's a very important city for the country, but, to where we live, it's part of who we are. And it's not just property values, and it's not just traffic. And so when you hear us, getting upset, there's also a heritage. This is something that's been passed on for hundreds of years, and you can't really say that in America too much. There's a reason why they called it Mount Pleasant, and that's because it has a general feel to it. And the biggest concern, I think, with this project is that whoever designed it, whoever the consultants were, and I think that's how this works, there's consultants, they didn't get it, and so because of that, they've lost a lot of trust. When I look at that tree right there, it looks great, but I'm concerned because I don't know how the roots are going to stay there. And so I love the fact in the short term we're talking that way, but I'm concerned. When we look at traffics and having no traffic signs, and blockage for trucks, well, I like that. There's a sign there.
Yeah.
But I'm also concerned because one of the things you first said was that DDOT doesn't modify their drawings. Whatever the law of the land is, that's a role for enforcement. And obviously, that's out of DDOT's control. So, when we come to the table here to talk about putting in physical barriers or things like that, we're trying to prevent it from, becoming neglected like it currently is. It's that kind of holistic understanding about the problem that I kind of feel has been lacking. And we're not going to get it. This is great. I mean, there's so many good ideas. There's good cross-examinations and good historical architects, but what we really need is a committee, a committee of people that know what they're talking about. Historical members, maybe people who work in real estate, to sit down with you and to come up with what modifications exist. Because at the end of the day, you've got consultants, you've got designers, you've got people that can come and they can give us options. Right now, this community, and why we're so enraged, is because we have no buy-in. This is something that's been imposed on us, and it's going to be here forever. And every time we see that angle, and by the way, those renderings do, for what that is, it looks good, but I think it's missing the point again, is that it's that intersection. That intersection is going to urbanize that entire area. And I'd like to know what that looks like, what that intersection plays in. Because this is just like what a highway is. It's just the traffic that it seems you're concerned with. But no, we're talking about, kind of the feel of our neighborhood. When you walk down that street, does it feel pleasant? And that really should be the litmus test. So, what I hope comes out of this is that you're able to form a committee of not just members of the community, but experts to come up with several plans, several ideas that we could do. And at the end of the day, let us weigh in on that so that we've got some stake in the final product. Anyway, for what it's worth.
should have had that.
I know there wasn't an interest in one of respond. Alright, so then I think that was an excellent comment, about the committee, so I know that DDOT probably took that recommendation down. Sir, Blackpolo?
Yes, I have two questions. The first is that why do we have to have a 90-degree angle going down? And basically it seems that this project is substituting a 90-degree angle going up for one going down.
This one right here? So this facilitates the safest left turn movement for Kenyon Drive.
Yes, but why don't you make it wider so when it comes from Adamson Road going south, it's wider? Yes, as it is used to.
And actually, I mean, this is one of the keys to the design. We're actually trying to get away from this chute of southbound travelers just passing right through with no consideration for the fact that there may be bicyclists or pedestrians nearby. By squaring this up, one is forced to slow down, turn the wheel right, and then turn left. And that is a 25-mile-an-hour posted zone. Vehicles aren't meant to be able to keep 45 miles an hour through your neighborhood.
But you're basically showing one. It seems to me that we spent an hour saying what we did wrong. Now we intervene very heavily. Maybe we should focus more on how we can fix this. That's
As
just
far
a
as
suggestion
the
for
safety
everybody.
improvements of this geometry, with the limited real estate right-of-way that we have, existing homes, national parkland, national zoo here, this is the safest configuration that we can practice. And we're satisfied.
When you have a sheet.
Okay, hold on for 1 second, because in order, there was a woman here who was wearing the black shirt with the gold necklace, and that's not black.
I just, on the idea that was spoken about, I just want there to be this overall understanding that Mount Pleasant is a very specific neighborhood. And we're not, I know that your duty is to get traffic going through safer for pedestrians and for cars, but we really don't want to make the neighborhood more conducive to cross-town traffic just slipping through the neighborhood. That's not,
I believe this is just the opposite.
And just so that people could hear, the resident made the comment that we don't want to make Mount Pleasant more conducive to cross-town traffic slipping through the neighborhood.
So this is a fully signalized intersection now with a left turn movement that didn't occur before. So the reason why we had a median here in the middle was to allow, while other cars going through on Irving in the stop phase, the southbound drivers could just keep going through with no regard. They could keep speed. By changing this and having Kenyon with a left opportunity, this is a completely signalized intersection. All four legs have to be controlled and have an opportunity to pass through. And we restricted the let's speed through Mount Pleasant on Highway 20 downtown opportunity.
Hold on for 1 second. There's the yellow shirt here, and then I know the woman in green had a question, and then Frank, and then I'm taking it back here. Yes. So you first.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on what the gentleman said there about traffic. I live on Irving Street too, and it's essentially a freeway already. And you're talking about creating with that dedicated right-hand lane, and you are talking about creating a chute there, and trucks are already going up there, and with impunity. I mean, they're going to that huge USA Target that was a nightmare. I don't know if there was any traffic mitigation for that. If there was, it felt miserably, because our street basically has a line of traffic going up day and night almost. So my question is, how are you going to prevent it from becoming like a freeway going through there? And what is the penalty for trucks that do go over? I don't think there is actually, is there? Is there any kind of mechanism to enforce that?
Just to repeat the question, it's, can you repeat the question?
Can you create a mechanism?
So can we create a mechanism to ensure that traffic and also truck traffic is not increased by coming this, but by the improvements we've made here? And is there an enforcement, is it possible for MPD to enforce? I can't answer the question for Metropolitan Police Department. I would assume that because we have regulatory signs there that they have the ability to ticket. So I would guess the community can make requests for better enforcement.
Is it even a ticketable incident?
I would believe so, if there's a regulatory sign.
You're basically saying that by putting a sign there, we shouldn't worry about it. You don't even know if it's an enforceable offense.
Well, it's a regulatory sign.
How should that make us feel?
Okay, I apologize, but let me restate. It's a regulatory sign, no trucks or traffic on Irving or Kenyon. So the police can ticket that. It's a regulatory sign.
Okay, and so then there was a question here.
Yes.
And then I second.
Right. So I want to go back to what we talked about, the level. It seemed like you raised it towards the end of the proposals, that for you going, and then, so can we go back down to having it level, and then we would eliminate a lot of problems with the barrier if we had it back to level? It was just, see, we did it very well. If you have the right-hand turn, we just go, it's just a hill. Just
So,
going up the hill.
so two things that can't happen. We cannot take a step backwards, especially where we nearly constructed a safer condition with federal monies. 80% of this project is federally sponsored, because they support us in making the intersection safer. The request to put back the original geometry or lower the elevations would not meet our national safety standards. So it's certainly something.
The community never complained about being unsafe, never. So it's so shocking to hear you keep talking about the safety, where we see that barrier as being really unsafe for cyclists wanting to go down Adams Mill. You have the barrier on their left, and cars, it's just really unsafe. And to go home to our neighborhood, there's going to be so much traffic because you're eliminating a lane of traffic going up Adams Mill, and then coming from Adams Mill, just one lane of traffic, it's going to be horrendous to get to our homes now, because you're eliminating that chute, which was a great way for people to get downtown. So it's going to be a hardship for us now. We're going to have to find other ways of getting to our homes. But we weren't consulted, so this is why it's happening.
I see Frank was next, and then here in the green, right here in the green, and then I saw the question here in the others. So we'll get to everyone, but it just takes time. Frank?
Can you answer that? Can you answer that question?
So I believe I did previously. The design reflects a safety improvement. It's been sponsored. It's 50% built at this time. It's approved by both DDOT and Federal Highways, our chief sponsor. So it's constructive.
So what are the statistics on the accident?
Where's the data? Just a second, in order. We're going in order. Go ahead, Frank, with your question. And then we'll come to you. Go ahead, Frank.
Where are the statistics?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and neighbors. My name is Frank Agnew, and my question is, in this age of high technology, why we don't have like some kind of, I watch the news every morning and I see the traffic and video simulations of stuff, and to show like the present, what it was in the past, what is in the present, and the potential ideas and projects. I'm kind of disappointed because all I'm seeing is still photographs, and that doesn't take into consideration the traffic flow of what would potentially happen when these projects are made. Is there any explanation for that?
So there are two reasons why I would do a simulation like that. One would be for traffic flow, for operations, and the other would be for a visual, for appearance. And so which one is it that you suggested?
In terms of all the elevation things that you...
For visual?
For visual, yeah.
I mean, their technology, granted, that is available. We haven't produced that. During design development, it wasn't requested. It's not something that happens on every project that we do, and certainly there are many projects that get approval, funding, and are built that don't have a need to make that expenditure. I can promise you this, if we had a 100-person meeting at 65% that said, we have no idea how this is going to look, what's DDOT doing here? We would have prepared a 3D simulation for you. But with scarce funds,
We knew about it.
we were working with your
We'll have
agency.
order. So, go ahead, please.
Okay. I am Maisie Holland, and I live on Kenyon, just at that traffic mix that you were speaking of. I came through on Monday from the mouth of the zoo, and there's Harvard Street towers there going up to Kenyon. I could not make the turn onto Kenyon. My question is that a permanent arrangement? I will not be able to go to Kenyon, but I will have to go as I did to Park Road.
No, that's not a permanent arrangement. It was a temporary construction condition. Up until yesterday, it was slated to last longer, but we've learned that because of the lack of right turnability, that lots of vehicles are taking the alley as a cut through. And we feel that's very dangerous. We've heard the community agree. We worked with the contractor earlier this week to find out what options are available. We would like to convert pavement, reinstate the right turn that people are expecting when you get to the top of the hill. We have a commitment from the contractor for a speed turnaround on reinstating the right turn. We had also had a review with our maintenance and traffic team to make sure that what we proposed was safe. So we've done all of that one day. It's today. It's been reinstated at this time.
Okay, so I saw the pictures. We're going here, and then sir, and then the woman in the tank top, and then I saw you, and then we'll come back there. So please.
Okay, my name is Irving. I live just up to Bend on Irving Street, and I drive through this intersection multiple times a day generally. And I understand and I appreciate the technical difficulties with this intersection that maybe not everybody does, because I'm an architect and I do drawings like this all the time. But I think one of the glaring problems with the design, and I'll clarify what I think was brought up earlier, which is kind of twofold. One, when people are talking about cars, if a car breaks down, people can't get through. It's true, because right now, there's no barrier there. So if somebody walking a lane, and the intersections or the roadway is clear, maybe you can skirt around and cross the double yellow line and go around, no problem. But right now, or with this proposal, this barrier here, it's one lane going southbound, one lane going northbound. There is no way for a car to get around a stopped vehicle. And furthermore, I have a big problem, and I can't believe nobody's brought this up yet, but that bus stop there going northbound on Irving, that's a huge problem, because when that bus is stopped, all the traffic from northbound is stopped, and there are people, in wheelchairs and walkers over there. It can take, 2 minutes, 3 minutes more for people to load and unload from that bus stop. Why can't that bus stop be moved further up on Adams Mill beyond the intersection where it won't impede the flow of traffic? I just think that's a huge flaw in this design right now. And I'm talking about the one on Adams Mill going northbound.
All right, so hold on. We're going to spend a lot of time on this. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have to tell you.
Wait, hold on for 1 second. Okay, just 1 second. We will have order. There have been people who have been waiting patiently with their hands raised. Thank you.
The blind corner aspect, are you saying here coming up the hill with the
Irving Street.
I'm saying, no.
Just 1 second. Feel free to come on up and show, because there's one person.
This is the pad for the bus.
Right, and it's the current location for the bus stop.
So when a bus is stopped here, to load and unload passengers, every car coming up this way has to stop until that bus is done. Right now, there are 2 lanes when the bus is stopped. You can go past it and then, decide to get into the lane that goes to Irving or Kenyon or on Adams Mill. This is a huge flaw, and this is going to be a big traffic impact on this intersection more than anything else that I've seen.
So the easy way, if I was to look at that to accommodate passerbys while the bus is stopped, would be to widen the roadway. And this is a slow.
Hold on, just 1 second. We will have order. We may not like the response we get, but we're going to allow him an opportunity to offer that response. So we will not have everyone talking at once. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. If you need to clarify your question, please do so. But one person at a time.
Right now, there are 2 lanes where the bus stops. So the bus stops in the right lane. There is a lane to the left that cars can get around. So I don't understand how you need to widen the road in order to create that condition.
Need a barrier.
You may not have a great response. You may just need to say you don't know and you'll consider it.
Well, some of the things early on at 30%, we talked about the prospect of adding a bike lane at 30%. And the bike lane, there's a lot of support for adding the bike lane because the trade-off is that when we added the bike lane to each side, we lost the lane.
So can a bike get past the bike?
Right here it's constrained, but right here is where we have pavement marking.
So you're now saying that also a bike has to stop behind the bus. Now a bike is stopped on an uphill. A lot of people use those city share bikes, you know. It's tough once you get going momentum on the hill. It's not nice to stop in the middle of the hill and then have to get going.
So this is the reason why we lost the lane. It was the addition at 30% of a bike lane on each side.
But what I'm saying is cars will have to stop, bikes will have to stop, everybody will stop at that bus. Don't you think that that's a problem, having the bus stop in that location?
I do think it's a problem, but I've also heard there's a lot of concern about free flow and added traffic using this as a cut.
Who did you hear that concern from? So hold on for 1 second. I think what we're going to do is we have to continue, because this is a point that has not been raised before. So this is something that I will personally continue to press and get more answers on, because it's an excellent point. What I want to do is take it to the next question, which I think is here. Thank you so much.
My name is David Pryor. I live at 1855 Irving, which is the corner of Irving and Kenyon. I've watched this project from day one. I've listened to it every morning, starting at very early in the morning, 7:15, 7:30. I will admit your crew has been very hospitable and very courteous, and thank you for that. My question is, to Sean's point, there are a lot of unanswered questions. There's been a lot of good issues raised, legal, historic, community fabric, etc. Do we have assurance from the crew, the project leaders here tonight, that we will at least stop or halt or delay until we can answer these questions? Because I notice you guys are forging ahead, and I understand timelines, but I hope that there's some feeling that this project should be discussed in more detail with the community committee or something, so we can figure out what the answers are.
Because we can't have private, but it elongates the time that.
If you can, I'll be very brief, but I want to ask a question. We do appreciate.
Sir, sorry,
I'm sorry. My name is Ronaldo Nicholson. I am the chief engineer with DDOT. I am responsible for the design, community, the outreach, what I would say lack of communication currently in the project. I am also responsible for the budget and for administering the contract. We do have a contract out there with a contract. And I would be remiss if I said we would just stop that contractor and delay this work. What I will commit to is the committee getting together as quickly and expeditiously as possible so that we make sure whatever comes out of that committee can be incorporated into the project, so that we can answer the questions, whether they be on the traffic, calming, because that's what I really see this as a safety project, traffic calming versus something that's going to speed traffic up. The issue on the historic preservation, all those issues should be addressed with the community. I can't speak to why it wasn't addressed prior in the development, but I can commit to it having going forward.
So hold on, and I know we said the black thing, you next, but if there's a resident that could just have, I don't know what the selection process for the committee will be yet. Obviously, the commission, we have to work all that out. But if someone could just circulate a sign-up sheet, if you have an interest, if you feel that you're qualified based on your background and expertise to be on that committee, if someone could just start a sign-up sheet at that point. Yes, ma'am, if you would.
About contractors who are working now. I don't have a good experience, but we're coming, because we live right on 1836. And so those trucks are stopped right in front of my door. And my husband, he works at night, in the afternoon, the contractors have been very rude to him because they're doing the work, they won't let him up the street. We live right there at that corner. So he can't get, so that causes all kinds of, that's not helping your argument any, because I'm living in the middle of the project, and I'm not pleased with the people who I have to deal with while you're digging. Okay, the trees and everything, I'll leave that, y'all got that. But I'm talking about right now, how we can work with your contractors, because I'm not pleased with them at all.
I apologize for that. We have to really make sure that should not happen. We have to
Because how can I, because I'm right at the corner, there is no back way, right there, and I have to go home.
1833?
1836.
36.
Irving or Kenney? Irving Street, so I'm right there.
All right, so it looks like Tom is going to connect you directly on that issue. Sir?
I'm Eric Solomon, I live on Boulevard Street. A couple of observations. First, I appreciate this meeting being called, but it strikes me as a classic example of closing barn. I said that as much as I appreciate this meeting being called and getting organized and learning about this project, at least in my case, for the first time, meeting strikes me as a classic example of a barn door being closed before it's already done. Second, you talk about that there's no evidence that this is going to result in an increase in traffic. Well, at least on Boulevard Street, it has increased tremendously. Traffic, particularly at rush hour. Our street is driven to virtually all. We have lots of little kids living on our street. And say, well, that's a law enforcement issue. That doesn't happen. And finally, well, actually two more. One is, you say that, yes, we ran this past the ANC and they approved it and everything else. Well, from China's comments at the beginning of the evening, it sounds to me like this is coming as a surprise to her. And finally, to echo the comments that somebody else made, I would like to know, I've lived in this neighborhood for 23 years. I have never had difficulty negotiating that term. A bunch of hope. And I would like to know were there specific studies taken, were the statistics, were the reports that say this is a real problem. Car tire going up on a curb? Come on. Why
Hold on, excuse me, we will have order. Thank you so much for your question. We're just going to give DDOT an opportunity to respond to that. And as you respond, let me just say thank you, because we have you in particular in the hot seat, but I mean, you have not been involved in this project from the beginning. We know you're on the construction side of it, but thank you so much.
ASHTO's policy on geometry for highways and streets specifies a turning radius to be 13.88 for a passenger vehicle. We had 7 for radius. When we look at that on the as-built condition, and we're looking at whether it's safe or not, that tells us from the national code that it's unsafe, and DDOT needs to do something about it. Now,
practitioners will
hold on. We're going to let DDOT finish its response, please.
So it's 13.8 is the requirement for everyone to get to 14. It doesn't mean that every single vehicle, when they turn the corner, will jump the curb. But it does mean that there is a possibility that they will, and that's the guideline. And what that means is that if a vehicle doesn't flip the corner, somebody standing there that's not paying attention, has a stroller, or is a wheelchair, is at risk. And so I know we don't see that every day. I could probably navigate it in my small car, but if a Suburban was coming through and they're not familiar, maybe they flip the corner. But what if a pedestrian is standing? That's not acceptable to these conditions. And because we initiated the project, we have to meet. We can't bring everything perfect. We didn't take all this right of way and take these homes in a right of way taking, but we did the best that we could. And that's what we're actually.
So here's what I have a question for right here. Sir, you waited a really long time. Thank you so much. And then over here and here. And Lisa. Okay, so please.
I live right around here, like right before Irving's curve. And we call this the curve of doom or the curve of death, because getting out of your car on this side when you have to do it already really dangerous. So we're very concerned about traffic getting speeded up. Also, the Kenyon Street residents are concerned now that the illegal turn at least slows people down, people racing for a yellow, are just going to be speeding even faster. So we're pretty concerned about that. And also, I would have to say that, okay, it would cost a lot of money to reverse the project now at 57%. It would cost more if we reverse the project at 100%.
Yeah, I'm Mark Bloom. I live my home is 1929 Lamont Street, which is that little block of Lamont that runs into Adams Mill Road. The intersection is the end of that block of Adams Mill Road. My children walk to the zoo. I've lived there since 1986, and pretty long time. My house was a dump when I moved in. I've done a lot of repairs inside and outside. And outside, I was sort of surprised when I first wanted to change windows and then change the deck. Every step I met with, they came to my house, and I came from New York City, and who the hell's coming to my house to tell me I can't make a change without the approval of my neighbors? But I quickly got to know the aesthetics committee and historic preservation folks, and part of my love for the neighbors is not just the way it looked, but it's the kind of democracy we've got, where the representatives of the community consult, you reach a consensus about what kinds of changes consistent with the historical rules and regulations that we've all decided and agreed on. So, you know, I'm heartened to know that respect for that process is in the federal regs and also in the regs that I understand that apply to this project. And I'm disheartened to think that VDOT doesn't have to comply with the same kind of process that each person here has to do when we make an aesthetic change or a practical change for safety or otherwise for our own homes. It's really shocking, but you know, that's the way it goes. I just want to thank you for your presentation, because I think you've done a really admirable job of presenting the rationale. You've been given a lemon, but you've done a good thing with it. The best one can do with the hand you've got. And I want to thank the engineer also for saying, you can't do anything. You've got a contract, you've got a responsibility not to waste the public money. But this project is not being done in a legal and legitimate way. The process has been followed. I do want it stopped tomorrow until it's legal and the full consultation is gone. I'm not against improvements. Certainly, I'm not against safety, but I want it done according to the processes that every citizen here, every resident has to follow. The government, VDOT, does not get to come in and have rights and privileges in our community that we ourselves don't have. So my question is not to you. You can't answer this question. Here's my question. I wonder if there are any representatives of our elected ANC representatives, city council, who's here that we've elected to represent us in the community, and I'd like those people to answer what the process is by which we say to you, no, that committee's not enough because you're going to keep building this plan that's got all kinds of technical problems. We could live with technical problems if we'd signed off on it. It's got all kinds of aesthetic problems. We could live with the solutions if we'd participated in the process. To blame us for coming too late to the show is the wrong answer, sir. It's the wrong answer. What do we need to do, and who can answer, to stop the process now until we've reached a consensus on first whether it's necessary, and if it is, how to proceed? Could anyone answer that?
In terms of what is the process and
whoever my elected representatives are.
So does anyone, the ANC members that remain here are Jack, Bill, Commissioner Yasmin Romero was here, and so Commissioner Adam Hoy was also here, as well as Councilmember Tommy Wells, and of course Councilmember Graham's office continues to be represented. And Wilson will answer. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Wilson Reynolds. I'm the Director of Constituent Services for Councilmember Jim Graham. I don't need a microphone, but I just want to tell me that I need it when I'm here. Councilmember's out of town, but he is aware of this process. He has been given the emails on this. We convened a meeting last month. Commissioner Terrell was there, Commissioner McKay was there, the Director of the Department of Transportation was there. He was underwhelmed with the rationale presented to him at this time. And he continues to have some very severe concerns. If the question is, can this thing be killed? The answer is yes, at extreme cost. And all of these questions come down to a balancing act. There's one thing I've heard here tonight, somebody's going to have to explain to me if I've heard this wrong. Is there anybody here that has any objection at all to moving that bus stop?
No.
Because that just seems to me like a rock.
Depends where you move it to.
Well, we have a bus stop down here, and I want to get back to this man's question. We have a bus stop down here in Howard Towers. We can certainly relocate a bus stop up here.
No.
We have
You don't put it anywhere if you don't have to cross it.
Living on Kenyon, someone's living on Irving.
You can leave it right there.
Do you want to walk all the way down to Harbor Tower?
We walk down.
Take it away. Get rid of it.
So we don't need a second one.
Would leaving that one on Adams Mill where it's at be okay with everybody? Or would you want to?
Nobody lives there at that bus stop.
Amen.
Okay, so hold on for 1 second, because I do have to say that the people from Harbor Towers are not here, but we do have many elderly residents who use, excuse me for 1 second, who use mobile devices to get around, and so they needed that bus stop to be closer to their building. So I have to speak up for them for they're not here.
Put it in Harbor Towers.
I objected. I just want to put that out there, so I'm going to let both finish.
I object to this process at the tail end of the meeting, trying to plan this out.
Just one hold on 1 second. We will have order, and we will have one person speaking at one time.
All of you are welcome to contact Councilmember Graham. He's very responsive. I'll give you his personal email. I'll give it to you right now, if you don't have it. It's Jim at Graham, the letter W, the number 1 spelled out, ONE.com. And he is aware of the emails that have been coming in. What these things come down to is a matter of choices. $3 million. A lot of it's been spent. This project gets shut down, we've got to give that money back to the feds. Okay, we've got to give the money back to the feds. The city's got to find the money to remediate this.
$400 million surplus.
Just 1 second, just 1
I'm
second.
just laying out the choices.
Just 1 second.
I'm not trying to make them for you, I'm just trying to suggest there's costs and benefits. The thing gets shut down, we've got to wait even longer to get the thing fixed and return to something that would be happy and accepted. And again,
Quick question, or quick comment, I guess. I work for a contracting firm, I get into project management. Yes, there will be an extra cost to shut this job down. I know that for a fact. There'll also be an extra cost to make a change if you agree to make a change, and then the extra cost may be too high to make that change. So you're going to lose on either end. So my suggestion would be, all these comments, no one likes the idea, shut it down now. There's a cost involved in that.
Thank you,
We're
sir.
going to need that.
Hold
You need it now, you need it later.
on 1 second, because we actually have this gentleman who was waiting to make a question, and so.
This is my question, it's just fine, he hasn't
It's
answered
actually
it.
answering your question.
He hasn't answered the question.
Hold on for 1 second. So the answer is, if, I totally agree with you, it's going to be expensive. and
Either way,
this
either way.
gentleman-
Stop it.
this gentleman is correct. He has a contract. It is a valid executed contract. Councilmember Graham wants to hear from you. All I can say is share your opinions with him. It is not simple, cheap, or inexpensive to go down this road, but it is also not impossible.
The job, and I'll end my question. Will he meet tomorrow at the committee here on that subject, not with the engineers? You passed the paper around. We want a group of people to meet with Mr. Graham this week to talk about how we shut this down.
Okay, hold on.
Until we've reached a decision on how to go forward.
Just 1
I
second.
share this with you.
I got it.
Aren't you his chief of staff?
So
Thank you.
here's the deal. The answer to your question, in terms of how do you stop the process, I can tell you that all that the ANC can do is advise government on the policies and programs that affect the neighborhood. In terms of whether the project can actually be stopped, the only way that I know of personally, and I'm not even sure that it's a valid way, would be through emergency legislation that Councilmember Graham could introduce. So basically, the answer to the question was, if there are people here, and not everyone agrees, as we saw at the beginning, but if there are people here, and I think the majority of people do feel this way, that the project should be stopped. Hold on, just 1 second, please. That the project should be stopped, and what you need to do is email your council member to that effect.
Well, I'd like to call for a
And so
committee
just
on
1
direct
second.
action
Sir.
after this meeting to talk about faster ways to stop
Thank
it.
you, you're out of order. I'm going to move to the
I'm not in order.
Since this construction has started, it has become a raceway. People are cutting through to get to 16th Street in the morning. You can't walk out there. You take the knife in your hand and walking out there. And I'm afraid that what's going to happen is people will come up. Kenyon has a cut through 16th Street. Go down Mount Pleasant across 16th Street. Before you started this, two questions. How did this get started? Were there any studies done that we needed this change? I've known this since 1974. And like him, I've never had a conversation that term. What got this ball rolling
how did we get here? How did you get started on what you said was a $43,000 job? It's now turned into multi-million. I mean, big deal. My other question is, what kind of traffic studies have been done to predict what the traffic will be going up Irving to the little shopping mall or 14 to those large apartment buildings and down across Boulevard Street on 16th Street to get downtown? That's what's happening right now. And you haven't even finished that.
So, thank you, sir. I'm glad you brought that up because you had mentioned it and I'll answer the question. What we have right now as a temporary condition is northbound traffic only on Adamsville. We've taken away the southbound movement. Right now, nobody can drive southbound on Adamsville. And what that's doing is creating a lot of cross-through, cut-through, I need to go a different way traffic. And I understand that's a concern. There is an increase in traffic, and by closing lanes, we can admit that would happen. It was necessary to construct the project. It's also temporary. For our schedule that we have now, without a stoppage, the project will be done by September of this year. And it will restore a southbound movement and have a northbound. And we've done nothing with adding capacity or sourcing from different nodes in the city to bring new traffic to this area. We have just improved the geometry to make it safer for pedestrians and vehicles that are using it. There's nothing in our traffic operations analysis that would show that this is a change. It is going to be structural.
All right, so